What is going on, everybody? And welcome back to the Talking Philly Sports program here on the Edge of Philly Sports with your boy, Matty B. It is Tuesday, June the 20th, 2023. It's a little after 9. It's like 9:24-ish. You're watching EOP, so that once again means you're watching me, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be back with you yet again. Humble apologies for last week. Scheduling conflicts and just really being really busy prevented me from getting on the air. Again, I'm sorry. I think that is the only like the second time I've ever missed a show in my almost going on now 2 years here on EOP. So I am sorry for missing last week, but I'm back here and I'm back with a vengeance, man. I mean, I'm back. I'm ready. I'm rested, sort of, but I'm back. And tonight we have a lot to talk about. We're going to get into a couple topics. We're going to get into the main topics of the Philadelphia sports scene on this late June Tuesday night, as we are literally hours away from the summer solstice. That's right, folks. Tomorrow, June 21st, the first day of summer. And also for those of you who track these things, and I'm one of them, the longest day of the year. That is today. Tomorrow will be the longest day that we will have sunlight all year long. And then starting on the 22nd, we start losing a minute of sunlight a day, all the way up to the winter solstice, which is on December 21st, which of course we then start picking that minute back up again. But that's not what you're here to hear about tonight, right? You don't want to know about the summer and winter solstices. That's right. We're here to talk Philly sports. And I want to get things going tonight, as we kind of do on the show all the time, and that is on your night or your day in Philly sports history. Oh yeah, before I get into that, I want to backtrack a little bit. So tonight, right now, as you know, you're watching me. There's going to be no Fightins final tonight. It's going to be a combined Fightins final, talking Philly sports with Matty B. So as the Phillies game, it's currently ongoing right now, and I know it's not looking too good, but as the Phillies and Braves wrap their game up tonight, I'm going to transition. We're going to stay on this platform. We're going to do what we're doing, but we're going to transition right over to um, the Fightins final, and I'm going to be your host tonight on the Fightins final / Talking Philly Sports with Matty B. So when I get into the Phillies, it's going to be kind of two-folded, right? I'm going to talk a little bit about the general sense of the Phillies, and then we'll get into breaking down this game tonight against the Braves. And it wasn't a good one, or it's not a good one up to this point. During the game has gone to the bottom of the ninth, but it's not looking good for the Phillies as they are coming up short against a division rival where we heard that before. But we'll get into more of that as we break down the game here a little bit later on. But back to the show and back to the first segment, which we of course do every week here on the show, and that is your night or your day in Philly sports history. I combed the catacombs and the archives for something really sexy on June 20th. Couldn't find it, but I went back. So I went back to June 19th, and I did find something very interesting. So do you know? And I'm going to take you all the way back to the year 1984. I was alive then. I was 11, but I do remember this night. I remember it very well. But on this night, the Philadelphia 76ers drafted a power forward out of the University of Auburn with the fifth pick in the 1984 draft, and that individual turned out to be Charles Barkley. That's right, Sir Charles was drafted by the Sixers on this night, or on June 19th, way back in 1984, thus beginning his storied 10-year career. Turbulent, not tenure, but turbulent career, 10-year, and not 10, yeah, tenure, like tenure, not Tenyear, but Tenure. Tenure as a Philadelphia 76er. Charles Barkley kind of joins that illustrious group of players that were brought here at the wrong time with the wrong role players around them, and all their gifts and natural abilities and talents were pretty much wasted as the team tried to assemble a team around them. Barkley, of course, was the came in at the end of the Doc J, Moses, Mo Cheek era. The Sixers did something drastically bad in 1986, 2 years after they drafted Barkley. They traded away Brad Daugherty, who was the first overall pick, or they had the first overall pick, but they traded it to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Roy Hinson, to name a few. That first round pick became Brad Daugherty, who was not what you would call a Hall of Fame center, but definitely would have been an interesting pairing with Charles Barkley. But Barkley never really got that team around him in his time in Philadelphia. I guess the closest that he got was in the '90s season with the Rick Mahorn, Hersey Hawkins group. That was probably the closest Charles Barkley got with the Sixers to winning anything. But he joins that list of players that were brought here at the wrong time or were brought here at the right time, but we failed to build anything substantial around them. And yeah, so on this night back in 1984, Charles Barkley drafted by the Philadelphia 70 or on June 19th in 1984, Charles Barkley drafted by the Sixers with the fifth overall pick in the 1984 draft. And that is your day in Philly sports history, brought to you by the good people here at Talking Philly Sports with Matty B and me. All right, let's transition real quick, pay some bills. This is the lineup here on Edge of Philly Sports for the week. It's Tuesday night. You're with me. I mentioned how we're going to do the Fight and Final tonight. I am going to do double duty. We're going to roll the Fight and Final into this show here when this game comes final. The Phillies have scored in the bottom of the ninth, so they're keeping it a game. But that's your news for tonight. Then tomorrow, Party on Broad, Philly Press Box Radio, Edge of Philly Sports Live, and then the Fight and Final at its regular type programming, like it's going to be its own show tomorrow, and then everything else that we got coming up on the week here on the Edge of Philly Sports. So please make sure you're tuning in, subscribing and liking, and telling a friend about us over here at EOP. So let's get into our first segment of the night, and it's going to be hockey. That's right. I'm going to talk some hockey and some Flyers hockey specifically. As you know, I have the dual distinction here on the EOP. I host. I'm part of the hosting team of the Clear the Ice, the Flyers post-game show. I also write articles for the Flyers, and I consider myself a puck head, a hockey head, whatnot. And of course, the Flyers this summer have been making a lot of news. The hiring of Danny Barriere as the GM and Keith Jones as the president of hockey operations. Well, they have not. And then, of course, the Ivan Provorov trade, which was actually lauded by me. I'm glad they made that move. Ivan Provorov was never really quite. It's funny because one final note, I guess, on Provorov is it's everybody's really critical about how he hasn't worked out here. I think Provorov is a serviceable NHL defender. I obviously do. The problem is we wanted him to be something that he's not. And we literally like missed all the signs, didn't want to see the player for what he was. We wanted to see the player for what we thought he should be. And that doomed him from the very beginning. And when I mean by we, I'm not necessarily saying the fans. I mean, the fans did it, but I think the ownership group did too. I think a lot of the, at the time, people in charge of player development and front office individuals really misread the room there with Ivan Provorov and really thought he was something, drafted him to be something that he just wasn't going to ever be. It doesn't mean he's not a good player. He is. But for what we wanted him to be, he's considered to be a failure. And now that he's on the Columbus, hopefully he finds himself in more of a suitable role for what he can bring, because he isn't. He's an. He was an innings eater. He's on the ice all the time. He's a workhorse on the ice. He's just not a leader, and he's not a D1 pairing guy. No, he's maybe more of a D2, D3. But if they put him in his proper role in Columbus, and they don't have the wrong expectations of him that like we had here in Philadelphia, I suppose Ivan Provorov, and I expect Ivan Provorov to have a pretty decent career, or to finish out his career or continue his career, and maybe have even a better career with all that pressure off of his shoulders of trying to be somebody that he never was going to be. So that's my final word on the Ivan Provorov trade. And of course, we've been hearing about the potential Carter Hart moves, Kevin Hayes moves, Scott Laughton's name has been thrown out there now. I'm glad to hear all those rumors. I'm glad to hear all those rumblings and grumblings. I hope it's wholesale changes across the damn board. I hope we trade at least 4 or 5 more people this summer. And of course, the draft is quickly approaching. The Flyers find themselves now with 2 first-round picks. So the Flyers are positioning themselves. The rebuild has begun in earnest. And then the Flyers this week last week added 2 more front office personnel. John LeClaire and Patrick Sharp are joining the group there as the band is getting back together, I guess. Keith Jones, Danny Barriere, and I don't know, maybe I don't know who else might be coming back, but the Flyers are now hiring ex-Flyers, and those ex-Flyers are now hiring ex-Flyers. So the circle of life continues down at Wells Fargo Center as Flyers front office personnel continue to hire former Flyer players and wonder why the hell it drives fans crazy. And I go back to the John Tortorella press conference when they introduced Danny Barrier and they introduced Keith Jones in their new roles. And John was all befuddled and didn't quite understand what the big deal was about hiring former Flyer players. And I had to kind of, and I checked John on my show, maybe a night later or whatever I did my show that week. I think it was the next night. And I said, because John, we've been burned by this before. I mean, it was former Flyers that took what was built in the late 70s into the early 80s. It was former Flyer players turned front office people that have driven this franchise into the friggin' ground. Now, I'm not sitting here telling you that Patrick Sharp and Danny Barrier and John LeClaire and Keith Jones are not going to reverse that trend. I am not sitting here telling you that that cannot be done. But I am also not sitting here telling you that you should really be a little bit more patient with the Flyer fan base when it comes to that, because we have fresh wounds that have not properly healed yet, and we're going right back down the same rabbit hole as we seem to have gone over the past few years. But John LeClaire and Patrick Sharp both joining the team as special advisors to the president of hockey operations, particularly into player development and young player identification. So they're going to be looking for talent and helping Keith Jones with identifying that talent on the Flyers coming up this season and perhaps beyond. And yeah, so good luck. I'm not sitting here telling you that I don't want it to be. I'm not sitting here telling you that it's a nightmare and that it's doomed. I'm just telling you that we've been burned before, and please be patient with us, because right now the Flyers haven't done a lick of winning in years. And but when you don't, what is the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and over again. Now, this sort of kind of is insane, because we're doing the same thing over and over again. But I guess we have no other reason or other recourse but to trust the trend and trust the tide and see what these two individuals can do, along with Danny Briere and Keith Jones as well. So the Flyers in earnest, beginning that rebuild, and two new front office hirings in John LeClaire and Patrick Sharp. A couple of front office rearranging. Valerie Camillo has left Comcast Spectacor. Don't know what that's all about. Don't know if that's a casualty of the former regime. I really don't. But things are definitely changing for the Flyers. And something that changed yesterday, but did it change? Because the Flyers unveiled their new uniform design, or the uniform colors, for the 2023-24 and beyond seasons. And it's strangely familiar, folks. Have you seen these before? That's right. The Flyers are going back to their burnt orange as their primary home colors. The old school white, old but new school white, it's kind of the same as it's been. I mean, they've kind of, as I mentioned, they've toned down the orange a little bit. Gone is the metallic, back to that burnt orange motif, and then the black third jersey still remains pretty much unchanged from yesteryears. But there you have it, folks. That is the long anticipated new Flyer uniforms. There's nothing really new about them. It looks strangely familiar from the 80s and 90s. Now, it is definitely harkens you back to the great Flyer years of past, right? Because when the Flyers were burnt orange before, now we're talking, the Brian Propp, Ron Hextall, Tim Kerr, Dave Poulin, Peter Zezel, those years, the Mark Howe years, that was when I remember those uniforms to be more prevalent, of course, when I was growing up. So perhaps it's looking for good karma. Perhaps they're looking to recapture some of their greatness. Perhaps they're looking for a jump start or a kick in the butt, and they're bringing back the old unis or the old colors and for that. And, and they're reintroducing it to a whole new group of fans that don't remember those uniforms for the Flyers. So I'm okay with it. Flyers to me are one of those timeless logos. There's nothing much really you're going to do with it. You're not changing the logo. You're not going to do that. You can't get away from orange and black. So there's no color scheme change. It's the Flyers are pretty much hands are tied when it comes to any kind of new uniform or logo thing, because the brand is what it is. They're never going to get off orange and black because they can't. It would destroy the brand, and they can't get off that logo because that's what the logo is. It's been the logo since 1967. They're not going to change that now. So this is what rebranding or what changing the uniforms is for the Flyers is coming out with different color schemes or color patterns or different shades of orange, or in this case, the same shade of orange just 30 years ago. But I'm okay with it. Anything to kind of hopefully kickstart all this thing back to the winning ways and get things moving in the right direction for this organization going forward. So that is your Flyers minute here on the show as we are approaching the trading season, the free agency period that's coming up here at the end of the month, early part of July, and so is of course the NHL draft, which of course the Flyers hold 2 draft picks, number 7 and number 22. So things are moving in the right direction for the Flyers. I think they are. I think the needle's going to be a while before it really shows any kind of movement, but I definitely think the needle is starting to move for the Flyers now, and we can only pray and hope that it's in the right direction. So here's to the moves and the changes for the Flyers. Now let's transition to the Phillies. I'm going to hold off on the Fighting's final part yet. We're not going to talk about the game tonight. By the way, it is now final. The Phillies have lost 4-2. With it, of course, that 6-game winning streak is now down. They've lost yet another game to another NL East rival, and kind of epically tonight. There's a couple of decisions that I want to discuss about, in this game that maybe we're managerial or maybe we're player. We'll get to that here. There's 2 of them, and I'm sure you know the 2 I'm talking about. But before we get into the game tonight, and before we transition to the Fighting's final portion of the show, let's talk a little bit about your Philadelphia Phillies before tonight. That's right, 38-34. They won their last 6 series, coming off of a sweep against the hapless Oakland Athletics. Before that, they did a character 3 out of 4 from the Arizona Diamondbacks. And then before that, of course, they took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers before heading out on that road trip. And things were looking good. People were feeling good. We were getting things to where they needed to be. 13-4 in the month of June coming into tonight. Now, of course, they lost tonight, so that's 13-5 now. But 13-4 heading into tonight. What is it about the month of June with this team? Last year, the Phillies were 18-8 or 18-9 in June. This year, so far, 13-4. Unfortunately, they don't seem to keep that mojo going beyond June or before June. It just seems to kind of center around the month of June. I don't know the reason. I don't know why the Phillies are so dominant this month, but I'm not complaining about it. I would like to see a little bit more consistency with this team when it comes to winning and comes to winning throughout the month. But it's amazing to me how good this team plays in the month of June over the last 2 seasons. Of course, June last year was the month that they saved their season. And this month, going into tonight, was kind of looking in that same direction. Now, we have a few more games to play in June. We got this 3-game with the Braves, then we got the Mets, then we got the Cubs, and then we finish it up against the Nationals. So there's some more games left to be played this month. But what is it about June? And now I'm not talking hitting season because the Phillies have been doing more than hitting recently. The starting pitching has become a lot more consistent and a lot more stable. The bullpen continues to toe its own. Of course, I'm not talking tonight, I'm talking up to tonight. And then, of course, the hitting. The hitting has definitely come back into its own, a little bit more consistent as well. And it's hitting season, as they say, whatever. But the Phillies have been on the road for the last 2 weeks in Arizona and in Oakland, or last week in Arizona and in Oakland. They're coming home tonight. They lost tonight. But what is it about this month and this baseball team, and not just this year? Last year as well, 18-9 last year. So far now, 13-5 this year in the month of June. Amazing, surely amazing. But of course, with the recent uptick in success, with the recent uptick in wins, there's that renewed sense of we're going to do this all again. Dancing on My Own has been blaring from the Philly clubhouse once again. Baseball players are a superstitious lot. I'll give you that. And whatever works for them, let it go, let it ride. I'm on board with it. But let's not lose sight of the problems with this baseball team. Let's not lose sight that this baseball team is not a complete product, and nor is it a complete product that can compete, in my opinion, deep into the summer as currently constructed. We are still lacking a 5th starter. Now, Christopher Sanchez yesterday went a long way, solid 4 innings. Maybe that's the guy we're looking for. Maybe he's the 5th starter. I don't know. But we're lacking a fifth starter. We're still lacking major consistency in our batting lineup. Bryce Harper, where have you gone? And I'm going to get on. I'm jumping on. I'm jumping on Bryce Harper because you know why? He's in the friggin' lineup. If he's not ready to play, if he's not ready to be an everyday DH, then why is he in the lineup? And I'm not going to give he's the quickest man forever to come back from Tommy John surgery. Well, obviously he's not fully back yet because he can't he can't hit right now, right? I'm not. I'm going to rag on him because he deserves the criticism because he's struggling mightily right now. He hasn't hit a home run in over a month. I get it. He's working his way back, but what is he doing in the lineup if he's not ready to be here? He's all he is an out right now. So what was wrong with sending Bryce Harper down to Lehigh Valley for a few weeks? What was wrong with keeping Bryce Harper out of the lineup till at least the All-Star break? What did we hurry him back for this? Because without Bryce Harper, this thing ain't getting off the ground. I hate to tell it. I hate to be that bearer of bad news. But without Bryce Harper, we ain't getting off the ground. We can't drag Bryce Harper along with us. It's the other way around. That's just the kind of player he is, and that's how important he is to this team. And right now, he's not ready. Right now, he is not able to be a consistent offensive force in this lineup. I don't know, and I know why. Of course, I know why. He's not fully back from his injury. But it does not answer my original question. If he's not fully back, if he's not fully ready, then why is he in the lineup? All he is an out right now. Send him somewhere else where he can kind of work on some things. Yes, the minors, a great place for him to be. So he works on some swings, gets his timing back a little bit more, gets his confidence back a little bit more, and then bring him back up. But sending him out there every night to look foolish, and that's what he's doing right now. He looks foolish out there. He looks almost Kyle Schwarber like out there. It kind of confuses me. So the Phillies are not going anywhere without Bryce Harper. And right now, Bryce Harper doesn't seem to be getting any closer or any better than he was when he was. Matter of fact, he's worse than he was when he first got here. So I want to know what's going on there. Number two is Kyle Schwarber. Yeah, he's hitting. He's hitting a lot, of course. And I'll give him that. Was his average up to now 181? I mean, how bad was his average that all the hitting he's done this month, and he's been knocking the cover off the ball. He had 2 more hits tonight. Still, his average is down in the 180s. I mean, how non-productive was he up to that point, man? But again, we need to see more from Kyle Schwarber. And this is where I need to see more from him. Why is it that he has to be a leadoff hitter? Why? Why can't a man being paid all that money? What is it? 3 million, 3 plus 5, whatever it is a year, can't be comfortable down in the 4 hole or the 5 hole or the 6 hole, just as comfortable as he can be up in a leadoff spot. What has happened to this generation of baseball players that they have to have their peace of mind all the time or not, or this throws off their entire game? Kyle Schwarber is not the answer as a leadoff hitter. And if we're going down that road again, it's going to lead us to the same result. We got to get Kyle Schwarber comfortable in some other position in this batting order. We got to move Trey Turner back into that leadoff spot, or Bryson Stott or Alec Bohm back up there on the top of that lineup. And we got to do this a little bit more conventionally. We got to be able to rely on Kyle Schwarber to hit as many home runs as he's hitting in the month of June now in the leadoff spot, down there in the 5 hole, and picking up 4 to 5 times more RBIs a game or whatever. Because right now, I don't want the solo jacks, man. I need you to be hitting home runs with runners on base. And the most consistent way to do that in baseball is to lower you in the batting order. And the fact that you can't get out of your own head about not being able to be productive other than leadoff, I don't get that, man. You're a professional baseball player. You're a professional athlete. You get paid millions and millions of dollars to do what you are the best at in your life. It has to be as a leadoff hitter. I don't get that. It's not working for me. I'm not buying that anymore. I didn't buy it last year, and I'm not certainly not buying it this year. So Kyle Schwarber needs to figure himself out as well, because we're not going anywhere without him. All right, man, getting on my rant. I mean, I was gone a week. I got to get it out. But getting on to some positives, and of course, there's a lot of positives to talk about this Phillies lineup. Nick Castellanos continues to be an all-star this year. Alec Bohm, he kind of, he got hurt, kind of working his way back. Bryson Stott continues to improve. JT hitting for the cycle, knocking his way out of a really bad slump, making a bonehead decision tonight to try to stretch the single to a double. But we'll get to that later. But There's a lot of positive signs for this team. And then, of course, the starting pitching, the four starters that we do have are starting to round in the form, except, of course, with Aaron Nola, who has the bugaboo yet. That bad inning is still kind of like an anchor around his neck. He's given up way too many home runs. But other than that, the starting rotation, the other three, have definitely rounded into form. Of course, now we're still looking for that mystery number 5. Who was that going to be? Christopher Sanchez got to start in the latest bullpen game in June, and he pitched well. Did he pitch well enough to be given over that fifth starter role? Not really too sure about that. Time will tell. But short of Dave Dombrowski trying to pull off a trade in late June for a fifth starter, which is damn near impossible to do at this point, with maybe the exception with a team like Oakland, Kansas City, maybe teams like that. But you know, Phillies are going to try to kind of continue to look for things internally as they try to work out their fifth starter issues and concerns. But heading into this game tonight, 6-game winning streak. They've won their last 5 series, 38 and 34. Played themselves right back into some wild card contention. The NL East still seems like a million miles away. And of course, tonight began a key critical series with the Atlanta Braves. We're going to get into that here momentarily, but yeah. So the Phillies, all signs are pointing, I guess, back to positive Phillies baseball. Freddie Burns chiming in. Weren't they good in June under Catherine? Yeah, they were. It's been amazing since I think 2019 has been like the June resurgency. Maybe even 18 if you go that further back. I don't know what it is about June, Fred. I really don't. I'd have to go back and kind of pinpoint it and give you the numbers, but I can definitely tell you that 13-5 this year and 18-9 last year. And as you mentioned, they've always had pretty productive Junes, even under what's his face? Who was the guy that they just fired? Joe. Are you kidding me? Why am I forgetting the manager's name that got fired last year? Oh my God. You know what I'm talking about. Name escapes me. Wow. Yep. I've been gone a long time because I can't remember. Wow. All right. Somebody hit me up with his name. But yeah, it's been an amazing Joe Girardi. God damn. Holy crap, man. I did not remember Joe Girardi's name. Wow. Man. Well, I got it now. Joe Girardi. Lucas checks in thoughts on the Phillies losing tonight. Lucas, from your lips to God's ears, we're going to transition into the fight and final here momentarily, as I will definitely wax poetic about my thoughts about the Phillies losing tonight. But before we do that, folks, don't forget, if you are looking for those hard-to-find theater, concert, and sports tickets, look no further than Sherry's Ticket Town at www.sherrytickets.com. What you see is what you get, folks, right? You're not going to get any hidden fees. You're not going to get any anything like that. And you'll save an additional 10% if you enter the promo code EOP10. So make sure you check out Sherry's Ticket Town for all your ticketing needs. And if you find your way down in Delco, now I mentioned the other night, I guess I was on the final, up here in Northeast Philly, we're kind of trapped with the collapse of I-95. So I can't really get out of the Northeast without diving deep into some massive, horrible traffic down either Roosevelt Boulevard or up there up North Broad Street. And I'm not going all the way up, to Willow Grove or to Jenkintown to drive down into Center City. So we're pretty much cut off from all points south up here in Northeast Philly right now. But once I do get out again, and once the road of communication is fixed, Dolan's is definitely top of my list down there at 24 East Sellers Ave in Ridley Park. Quizzo, music, great times, memorabilia, and giveaways. You never know who's going to walk through the front door at Dolan's at any given time. So you need to make sure that you're there always to make sure that you don't miss a single moment of fun at Dolan's. And if after a night of fun in Dolan's, if you wake up in the next morning and you have pressing needs with workman's compensation, motor vehicle accident, personal injury, or criminal law questions, Dave Cherry is the man to call at 610-565-0300. Let Dave know that Talking Philly Sports with Matty B, and the Edgewell Philly Sports has sent you. And that is going to kind of get me right into this segment. That's right. Should I Hey, hey. Okay, I don't know the music offhand, but welcome to the Fighting's final segment of Talking Philly Sports with Matty B. Told you this at the beginning of the show. We were going to wrap things into we're going to wrap the post game into this show tonight as listen. We're all trying to squeeze in summer here. I'm doing it a little differently than a lot of other people, but people are out there trying to spend time with their families, and I am not going to infringe on that. For the Phillies post game show when I was literally coming on right before it, so I am going to pull double duty tonight, and I'm more than capable of doing that. I mean, the Fight and Spinal was my idea. I mean, I'm the original host, and I've now paired up with Big Al, Pat Bernard, and Mike Lauro with it. But I mean, I'm more than capable of rolling the Fight and Spinal on my own. Hell, I did it for an entire season by myself. I mean, I don't need anyone to hold my hand. I know how to do the Fight and Spinal. I mean, it's my concept. But anyway, back to back to reality. Tonight, the Phillies took that 6-game winning streak back home after a long, long, long road trip that took them out to Arizona and Oakland. Ranger Suarez, who has been really impressive. Let's just say it what it was. Impressive over his last 3 or 4 starts. Got the nod today, but he was going up against Spencer Strider, one of the better young pitchers in the National League. And the Phillies were starting a 6-game stretch now where they will play 3 against the Braves and 3 against the Mets that are crucial. These are, I said this back in about a month ago when they kind of ran this gauntlet before, back up there when they were going to Atlanta and New York. Not season like moments like that. Like if they lose the next 6, season's not over, of course. But these are season defining moments. These are the moments that when you look back on this season, regardless of what the Phillies end up finishing this year, when you look back on the season, you're going to take a look at how they did head to head against the Mets, how they did head to head against the Braves, and pockets of the season when they played them, and you're going to you're going to be like, yeah, that's why they finished. Yeah, you know what I mean. And tonight, the Phillies had an opportunity again to continue to build on that momentum of that 6-game winning streak, coming home and continuing to get this thing right, continuing to feel right, continuing to be right. But wasn't really meant to be tonight, as once again the offense continues at its most inconvenient times to be inconsistent. Phillies banged out 11 hits tonight, but can only get 4 runs or 2 runs, one in the 5th, and then one there in the bottom of the 9th, as they were befuddled tonight once again by Spencer Strider, who gets the win. He went 6 decent innings. I ain't going to say strong because the Phillies hit him, but he struck out 9 Phillies, which again continues to be a major concern for this team. The amount of strikeouts. Minter, Anderson, and Iglesias would come on. Iglesias gets to save his 10th. Ranger Suarez, who pitched really well. And then there's some questions about why Ranger was pulled when he was. He pitched 6 innings, gave up 4 hits, 1 run. It was earned. It was a monstrous home run. 2 walks and 7 strikeouts, and that 1 home run. Now, did Rob Thompson see fatigue? That home run hit by was it Austin Riley who cracked that thing out of there? Yeah, it was Austin Riley. It was about 800 feet. I mean, it wasn't 800 feet, but it was back up there almost into the second deck. Maybe that was a harbinger in Rob Thompson's mind, but he went with Trevor. Said Trevor Hoffman. Was it Trevor Hoffman they went with? But they went with Hoffman, who came in the 7th and just was not effective. I mean, gave up a leadoff walk. Then he gives up 2 additional runs. He gives up two more hits. In total, 2 runs. They were earned. He walked 1 and struck out 1, and really kind of let the game slide away from the Phillies on the pitching standpoint. But he's not the reason the team only scored 2 runs. I mean, the Phillies had their chances tonight, but could not get runs across the board against a division rival, and it continues to frustrate people. The Phillies tonight on the night 1 for 12 with runners in scoring position. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know, folks. 1 for 12 with runners in scoring position. They left 8. They left 8 on base. Offensive standouts for the Phillies. I guess you got to go with Kyle Schwarber, and I want to apologize because I said earlier Kyle Schwarber's batting average was still up there in the 180s. Now it's actually now up to 191. He was 2 for 5 tonight with a strikeout. But really, that's it. I mean, that is really your offense for the Phillies. Just a whole bunch of offers. Nick Castellanos was 1 for 3. He had a walk and 2 strikeouts, and then Cody Clemens 1 for 4. I mean, that's your hits tonight for the Phillies. It's just amazing. I mean, Bryce Harper was 2 for 4. JT was 2 for 4, but JT, of course, the bonehead play maybe of the year, trying to stretch that single into a double when the Phillies desperately needed base runners. And it was 2 outs, for God's sakes. You got to read the room better than that, JT. You got to read the room better than that. We didn't need you on second. I just needed you on base. Bonehead play by a guy that's supposed to be one of the best players in baseball. And I don't look at it as aggression. That wasn't an aggressive base running play. That was a stupid base running play. Bryce Harper, who of course I was ragging on earlier, 2 for 4 tonight. He's got but it was 2 strikeouts as well. But again, continues to lack any type of power. No home runs again tonight for Bryce Harper. But Phillies banged out 11 hits, but could only get 2 runs across the board on the Braves. 1 for 12 with runners in scoring position is all you got to know. Let's go over the scoring summary as the Phillies did get up on the board earlier. Nick Castellanos would knock in Brandon Marsh in the 5th inning to give the Phillies a 1-0 lead, but then Austin Riley, a 409-foot bomb in the top of the 6th would tie things up at 1. Acuna and Ronnie Abiz, they were really the catalyst of that Hoffman 7th inning. The Braves would score 3 runs in that inning, or they would score 2 runs, in that inning to stretch their lead to 3-1. And then Matt Olson would homer in the 8th and make it 4-1. And then Cody Clemens would get things kind of going in the 9th as he would ground out and a fielder's choice knocking in Bryson Stott 4-2. But that's how things would go for the Phillies. Hoffman gets the loss, deservingly so. Strider gets the win. He's now 8-2, and the Phillies now are 38-35. 6-game winning streak is good. Bye-bye. And back to the drawing board, I guess, if you're the Phillies, as we kind of look at what we're going to do now. They had another golden opportunity at their fingertips tonight. But failed to capitalize, failed to get the, that I guess you would kind of look at this as a statement game. I mean, you're looking at some of these games and you're really, as I mentioned, there's certain games that this team needs to win. And those games primarily are against your divisional rivals. And I'm not just talking Mets or Braves. I'm talking the entire division as this team continues to struggle mightily against the Mets and Braves. But they got to get better. We got to get better. And we got to win these games, man. We got to win these games. And it's not off to a good start as the Phillies fall tonight, 4-2. Banged out 11 hits, but could only muster 2 runs as the Braves, and not a dominant performance by Strider. They hit him a lot, but Phillies just could not get any runs across the board, and no run support for Ranger, who pitched well through fatigue. Questionable move about pulling him out for Hoffman there in the 7th inning. And then the most questionable play of the game maybe came in the 7th inning as well, in the Phillies half of the 7th inning, when Rob Thompson, I guess, ordered up a Kyle Schwarber bunt. Folks, I'm not obviously watching the post game, but I will definitely be looking for it after I'm off the air. But what in Hades is Rob Thompson doing asking Kyle Schwarber to bunt with 2 outs? Don't understand that play at all. What analytic, code was he trying to crack in the dugout where it said that Kyle Schwarber should be bunting in any situation? But 2 questionable decisions by your manager again tonight, as well as a questionable base running decision by JT Realmuto, kind of running the Phillies out of an inning there in the 8th with trying to stretch that single into a double. He was dead out, folks. All right. There was no controversy there. The Phillies wasted a challenge on that play as well, but just not a good night as the Phillies somewhat revert back to some old ways tonight against the Atlanta Braves as they start their 6-game homestand with a loss. Let's take a look around Major League Baseball for the rest of your night in baseball. Currently in the top of the 9th inning, it is 8-6 Reds over the Rockies. In the top of the 10th, the Athletics and the Guardians are tied at 2. In the bottom of the 8th, it's 10-2 Red Sox over the Twins. Bottom of the 7th, 5-3 Diamondbacks over the Brewers. Bottom of the 8th, 4-2 Astros over the Mets. Top of the 7th, the Rangers and the White Sox are tied at 4. Just underway out in San Francisco, it is 0-0 Padres Giants. And getting underway at 10:07 is the Dodgers and the Angels from Anaheim. Games that have gone final: Baltimore over Tampa 8-6. Kansas City over Detroit 1-0. Toronto over the Marlins 2-0. The Yankees defeat the Mariners 3-1. The Cardinals over the Nationals 9-3. And the Cubs over the Pirates 4-0. And the Reds over the Rockies 8-6. as that is your night around Major League Baseball. And tomorrow, don't forget the series between the Braves will roll on from the bank. It is going to be a 7 or is it 6:40 start tomorrow? 6:40 start tomorrow. AJ Smith will be going up against Aaron Nola as Nola will try to again work his way out of that bad inning and hopefully keep the ball in the yard for the Phillies as well. So 6:40 start tomorrow. Smith versus Nola. Phillies and Braves will continue their series from the bank. And that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you for coming on and listening to some Talking Philly Sports with Matty B and the Fighting's Final as I was pulling double duty tonight. And I'm glad to do it because I'm glad to be back on the network. It's been a couple weeks since I've been on, and I'm happy to be back. So um, don't forget all the great stuff we got coming up this week on the network. As we do every week, we got you covered anywhere you look around the Philadelphia sports landscape. And I will see you guys next week. Until we talk again, that is the news, and I'm out of here.